Welcome to The Romantic Side of Suspense with Sarah Hamaker. In each episode, she'll talk with your favorite romantic suspense authors. They will take you behind the scenes of the writing process, giving excerpts from their writing, and share stories about their writing life.
Never Miss by Melissa Koslin. Former CIA sniper Cadence Toll possesses a special set of skills and a rare pedigree. She comes from a family of assassins, and by saving Lyndon Vale's life, she risks being found by them. Despite the danger, Cadence feels compelled to help Lyndon discover who is after him, and his research that seems to prove that the Ebola virus was man-made and is about to be weaponized. With shadowy figures pursuing them and a mastermind watching their every move, Cadence and Lyndon must scramble to stop an impending bio-attack at the State of the Union address. But their warnings fall on deaf ears, and it becomes increasingly clear that there's no one they can trust, except, perhaps, each other. Strap in for a breakneck story that will have you up all night, hurtling toward the last page as the clock ticks and time runs out.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of The Romantic Side of Suspense. I'm your host, Sarah Hamaker, and I'm so glad you joined me. I'm talking with Melissa Koslin today. She is a fourth-degree black belt. Well, I don't think I want to meet you in an alley, Melissa. And she also writes romantic suspense. So welcome to my show.
Thank you for having me.
So, black belt. Okay, I have to ask, how long have you been taking lessons?
I started when I was a teenager in 1994.
Oh.
So, a while.
A while. And so do you actually teach? And I see you're a certified instructor, and I am not even going to try to pronounce that.
It's Taekwondo.
Taekwondo, right. I got the Taekwondo,
yeah.
But it was the word before it.
Oh, Songahm.
Yeah, that's that one.
Yeah.
So do you actually teach classes?
My husband and I taught classes as a career for many years. We owned a school in Ohio. We ran a school here in Florida. I haven't formally taught for several years now, though.
Okay. So do you find that martial arts knowledge has come in helpful writing romantic suspense?
Extremely. It just allows me to be able to write the physical scenes more accurately, specifically the fight scenes.
Yeah, do you ever try it out with your husband? I just had to ask because sometimes I'm like, okay, I need you to stand here, and I'm going
No. I have enough experience. I can do it in my head.
Oh, man.
But that would be fun, though. I should pretend I need it and then just, knock them down or something. That would be good.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm thinking, Melissa. Yeah, I'm always, and then one of my sons is, he's now as tall as me, so I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to pull or push someone through a doorway. I know it sounds silly, but to figure out how to, just the scene wasn't coming together. So I said, okay, so you're going to stand here, and, it's my heroine, so I'm thinking she's about that size. I didn't tell him that. I don't think he wanted to be a girl, but it was very helpful. So I'm always grabbing kids or rearranging furniture or just doing that. But I thought, wow, yeah, if I could just flip my husband around, but I have no martial arts skills at all. So I guess we should probably not go there. So is that I guess that's one of the ways that you ensure your books are accurate, because you can just use your own knowledge. How else do you work on keeping that accuracy in your books?
Well, as far as anything not, fight scene related, I do Google Earth a lot. I try to write, yes, I try to write scenes that, right in places where I've been. I have a couple books in Jacksonville or that run through Jacksonville. I have been to Atlanta, which is in this book, but I've never been to the CDC. I've just been through downtown Atlanta and the north area. So this book, it kind of necessitated CDC, Washington, and then I did LA because I wanted it to be completely across the country because I wanted that time where they're driving and planning. And I've never been to LA, so I had to rely on Google Earth for this one almost entirely. And then as far as for this book, the aspects of sniper, I researched, and then I had a friend of mine who's an ex-Marine sniper check for correctness. He's actually the one who told me which gun she should have, because she's literally the best sniper in the world. And he's like, well, I had her using a standard Marine sniper rifle, and he's like, nope, that wouldn't be good enough. You got to use this one. So that was really helpful.
Right, because, all guns look alike. Sniper rifle, I would have said, I was like, yeah, that would have been, make sure, because I might not have noticed.
Yeah.
Right.
But, somebody who does know a little bit, I want it to be really, really right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that I hope readers kind of get, that most of us writers, because we can't say all of anyone, right? Most of us want to be as accurate as possible. We want to make sure that it could possibly happen. Not that it necessarily would happen, but there's that enough element of truth in there. Yeah.
Exactly.
That could happen. But isn't Google Earth like the best invention ever?
Oh my God! What did we write before it?
I don't know.
Because I have chase scenes that it's suspense, so there's lots of chase scenes and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know what these roads look like. So, you can look at a map and I can tell you what roads, but Google Earth allows you to actually see what you're passing, see where you are. It's really great.
Yes, yeah. And I love both, because the maps will give you that, okay, they can't turn left here, or where can they go, or the river runs here, and that's kind of good for the overview, but then you do need to get down there and go, all right, are there actually trees?
Yeah,
are there,
exactly.
Is there any cover for them? Yeah, no, they're, I find it very helpful as well. Yeah, I don't know what people used to do. I guess they just relied on encyclopedias, and local librarians got more phone calls. I don't know.
Probably.
Although local librarians are still great. My kids use you all the time, and I call when I need something. But Google Earth has really helped all of us writers. Thank you very much, Google. So how do you pick the location and the settings then? We talked about the accuracy and using Google Earth, but how do you figure out where you want to put your books?
Well, I think I mentioned it. If I have freedom, I like to try to put them somewhere where I have some experience. But, I didn't have that luxury this time. This time it was all just based on, I already had the plot, so it had to be in D.C., had to be. And then the CDC, the main CDC office is in Atlanta, the main campus. So that it was picked for me based on the plot that I chose on this one.
So just promise me that you research if they rode the Metro. I'm in Northern Virginia, so I'm very familiar with DC. Go there frequently. So what I hate from movies is when they have, Metro, we call it Metro stations here in like weird places. I'm like, no, there's not a Metro stop.
They do not ride the Metro. They drive a car.
Okay, good. Then you're probably okay. Because that just drives me crazy. I'm like, it's not that hard, people. It is not that hard.
Look it up online. I'm sure you can find where the stops
I know,
are.
even the movies. I'm like, I understand for this, but can you please just, and they don't look like New York subway cars, okay? They just don't. One of those pet peeves. So did they visit any monuments in D.C. or anything interesting like that?
Yeah, they actually visited several. There's a pretty major happening at the Capitol building. And then they also visit the FBI building, and they visit some of the monuments like the Vietnam, World War II monument, and the Martin Luther King Jr. monument.
Yeah, those are all
that was actually fun.
Yeah.
But researching the Capitol was a little tough because I don't want to get on a terrorist watch list.
Right. Well, especially, your book was probably all written before all that nonsense happened. And
yes, I promise. And I am not responsible for any of that. It's already done.
Yes, good. Well, we're all glad to hear that, Melissa. Yeah, that was really, we're not going to dive down into politics, but that was just a really kind of one of those times where you think, I'm sure, scary, but I was also thinking, I'm sure some author out there has written a scene like that and thought, oh my goodness, no one would have thought this would happen for real.
Well, my attack on the Capitol was a little more unique than that.
Good.
It involves fireworks.
I guess.
So much more interesting.
Well, good. I mean, I guess that's good in a way because you're like, okay, that was a little too close to home in some respects. So everyone knows we really make this stuff up.
Yeah. Plus the whole, virus thing that's, going to be a pandemic thing. Yeah, I totally wrote this before 2020, I promise.
I know, right? Yeah, I think we were due as a human race, due as in everything, these things happen. Been little more than 100 years since our last global pandemic. I think these things just are cyclical in some ways.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So it shouldn't be too surprising that it came along when it did. So
yeah.
So what is it about romantic suspense that you felt, oh, this is what I want to write? I mean, there's a lot of genres out there. What was it about romantic suspense that kind of called to you as a writer?
Well, I have written other genres, but this is the one that I keep going back to, and I'd say the majority of my books are in this genre. I think it really comes down to my two favorite things in writing is intrigue/mystery and any kind of super intense emotion. And so this is the genre that really covers all of that and marries it beautifully.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? That's what I love about it too. I thought, oh, maybe I'll write romance. I'm thinking, no, I keep putting them in these dangerous situations.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, romantic suspense, that's for me.
Yeah. And I find straight romance novels, sometimes I find them a little dull. I need something, some more, really more tangible plot. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. I love the way we're able to use the outside, a lot of outside influences to kind of create that tension married with the inside.
Exactly. It really
turmoil,
helps build the romance by having that outside. Yeah, you're
right. I enjoy having those kind of all wrapped up together and just find it more, for me, more satisfying. I do love to read, I will read romance sometimes because I find that those books really have that depth of character. Not that romantic suspense doesn't, but I find that can just be helpful. But I do read a lot of romantic suspense because I love the genre, and it's always good to see how other people are doing it, just to kind of, see what's out there and enjoy all that kind of thing. So, and we talked a little bit about our characters. How do you connect with your characters? What do you need to know about your characters before you start writing? I'll put it that way.
I need to know a lot. When I first start a story, I come up with the basic gist of the story, and I have to come up with the characters kind of at the same time. I write kind of a free-form quasi-bios where I just throw everything on a piece of paper, everything from physical characteristics, personal quirks, annoyances, strengths, anything. A lot of it doesn't actually make it into the book, at least not directly, but it helps me understand the character better. So it helps me to build how they would behave and how they would react to whatever I throw at them.
So do you spend, how does that change as you're writing? Do you go back and tweak that, or you just kind of...
Yeah, I'll tweak it and I'll add to it as I go. So I'll have 3 documents open as I'm writing: the book itself, the characters, and then the other one is the general layout, the general outline of the book. And I'll just keep updating everything as I go.
Yeah, and so do you know how your book is going to be resolved when you start? I mean, do you know who the bad guy is? Do they tell you? Does that your characters tell you who's going to be the villain?
I already know who the villain is every time, because and I like that, because I tend to like my villains to be very mysterious. Like this book, you actually kind of get a hint of who it is fairly early on, but you don't know until the very end. And I like being able to throw those little tidbits in there that you don't realize what it is until it's revealed who it is, and you're like, oh my god! So I always know who the bad guy is, because it helps me build, because I love that mystery and intrigue in there. But I don't always 100% know exactly how it'll resolve. I have kind of a general idea, but that'll usually cement more solidly as I go.
Yes, yeah. No, I tend to be a little less of a plotter, more of a pantser.
Yeah.
And for the listeners who aren't writers, that just means that I do like a general idea of where the story is going to go, but I don't plot it out chapter by chapter. Things just seem, my characters just talk to me, and they have to be more fluid. But I remember, I think our subconscious is a very unique gift to writers.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll write something, and then like 3 chapters later, I'm like, oh, that's why I wrote that. Because that's going to come into play now. And at the time, I kind of knew that, but I didn't like sit down and go, I'm going to write this little piece here, and it's going to come into play several chapters later. Subconsciously, I kind of just, because I'm thinking about the story and doing it. But I've had that happen a couple of times and been like, oh, yeah, right. Thank you, subconscious, for helping me out there.
I'm a little bit more of a control freak. I tell my characters what to do, and they better listen. So.
Well, you do have that black belt, Melissa, so you can just beat them into submission and say, you're going to do this. Whereas those of us without that skill, we're kind of like, oh, what are you going to do now? Can you please tell me? Okay. Maybe I'm a little too polite with my characters. I don't know. We'll see. So what are you working on now? Any other books coming up after this one?
Yeah, I have another one coming out with the same publisher, Rebel. I have another one coming out next fall, 2022. It's another romantic suspense. It's unrelated to this one. It actually has more to do with human trafficking. So it sounds like a difficult subject, and it is, but it's still more about the people than the trafficking. But it still, makes a strong statement about it at the same time. I'm really excited about that one. I think it's one of my favorite books that I've written. It's really good. And then I am currently writing, as I'm always writing something. I can't not write something.
Yeah,
so
I hear you.
I'm in the middle of something else. It's going to be kind of a romantic suspense, but possibly with a little bit of a twist to it. So we'll see what happens with that one.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you having me.
You have been listening to The Romantic Side of Suspense. I'm your host, Sarah Hamaker, and I've been talking with Melissa Koslin. And stay tuned for an excerpt from her latest book, Never Miss.
Now an excerpt from Never Miss by Melissa Koslin. Sarah Jean Rogers, she mudded. Elizabeth Jean Jones. Which ID to use this time? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. She held up the license in her right hand. Sarah Jean Rogers it is. She took the license with the name Mary Jean Smith out of her wallet and replaced it with a license with the name Sarah Jean Rogers. She finished cleaning out her wallet and put Mary Jean Smith away in the safe, closed the door, and checked that it was securely locked. She walked out of the shadowed storage space, empty except for the small but heavy safe bolted to the concrete floor. The space was a little bigger than her last storage unit, But it had been the smallest available, and she didn't want to go searching all over LA in this heat and traffic for a better deal. She'd enjoyed Montana much more, but she knew better than to stick around anywhere too long. And they wouldn't likely spend much time looking for her in a place like this, crowded and hot, two of her least favorite things. She pulled the overhead storage unit door closed with a clatter and locked it. Inside the car, Mac had his paws up on the window and was watching her. She made a shooing motion, and he scooted back over to the passenger seat, still watching her as she unlocked the car with her spare key and got in. "What?" she said. "I left the car running. You were fine." He sat down on his seat and curled his fluffy tail around himself. She tossed her drill on the back seat floor next to the case for her Macmillan TAC-50 rifle, took a drink from the water bottle in the console, opened the apartment guide she'd picked up, and started scanning for studio apartments. Mac got up on his hind legs and pawed the passenger window. "You want to hear and smell what's going on? All right, just a few inches." She pressed the button to lower the passenger window. She kept waiting for that button to stop working too, like most of the buttons in this old Chevy Blazer. Max stretched his long body to stuff his nose out the window. She smiled as he sashayed his tail contentedly. People were gathering at the end of the block of blue roll-up doors. She'd seen a poster in the office about abandoned storage unit auctions today. She decided to stay a little longer until she figured out which apartments she would look at and allow Mac to enjoy watching the people. She caught a glimpse in her rearview mirror just as Mac's tail stopped and his fur went up. There was a man walking up from behind the car. The man walked around the passenger side of the car, surely headed toward the auction. A low growl sounded from Mac's throat. The man stopped and looked at Mac, less in a shocked way, but more like he was intellectually curious. "Is that a dog or a cat?" "He's a Maine Coon. He won't hurt you. Unless you do something stupid." "A what?" "It's a kind of cat." He looked from Mac to her, made eye contact. She started to think he was going to say something, do something. She felt his focused attention on her like the weight of a piano. Then his expression cooled, kind of detached, and he walked away. She turned back to her apartment guide, not sure what to make of him. Mac purred and she stroked his fluffy orange fur. Then she looked out the windshield at the man, now standing at the back of a small crowd. He stood straight with his arms crossed and interacted with no one. There was something there, something a little different about him somehow, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Or was it just that he stayed back away from the other people that made him stand out to her? He was pretty standard looking. Tall, dark hair, jeans, and a t-shirt. Well, standard wasn't the right word. Around here, the lack of man bun made him seem unique. She laughed and went back to her apartment guide. She started making calls to a few of the apartments to ask some key questions, the ones she didn't like to ask in person because people looked at her like she was a crazy paranoid. Then the group of people moved down the row of storage units closer to her. Mac changed to pause on the dash so he could look out the windshield at the people. "Just a few more minutes, buddy." She dialed the next number. She wasn't having much luck so far finding a place that met her requirements. A man wearing work pants and a t-shirt with the name of the storage facility on it cut the lock on the unit where the crowd was gathered. He lifted and the roll-up door rumbled on its track. An older man, surely the auctioneer, started giving statistics about the unit while all the people craned to get a look inside. Once everyone had taken a look, The auction started. The man from before remained behind the rest of the crowd. He made a bid $100 higher than what the auctioneer called for, and several people turned and glared at him. He adjusted his rectangular glasses, recrossed his arms, and remained focused straight ahead. She realized she'd stopped apartment hunting and was just watching him. She didn't like to admit to herself when she found a man attractive, but that wasn't what really had her attention. She narrowed her eyes. He knows something. He knows there's something of value in that unit that the others don't see. Or was he just stupid? No, he definitely wasn't stupid. She crossed her arms and studied him. A few seconds later, the auctioneer announced that the man had won the auction. The crowd started to disperse except the man who'd won. He walked up to the auctioneer, surely to finish the transaction. A glint from across the way caught her eye. She turned back to the man. The auctioneer shifted around to the other side of him and drew him a couple of feet over. She put her blazer and gear in reverse and eased on the gas, wondering if the man had any idea he was about to die.
Thanks for listening to The Romantic Side of Suspense with Sarah Hamaker. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. You can sign up to receive notifications of upcoming podcasts and listen to previous editions at sarahhamakerfiction.com.